Dude, why is this 17 pages long? Am I going crazy? Wait, what? Wait, is it actually? Wait. Oh, no, it's not. Those are my sources. Okay, I was like, wait, what? Hello, everyone, and welcome to my channel. I realized that my first video being a class project seems kind of boring, but hear me out. I'm about to rock your world. So why am I doing this? I was assigned to make a final project for my linguistics class, Language and Power. The topic that I chose was about the intersection between neurodivergence and language. Specifically, my research question is, how do linguistic practices surrounding ADHD and autism on TikTok, Tumblr, and Twitter reflect and reinforce power dynamics between neurodivergent and neurotypical users? And what role do these platform-specific discourses play in shaping public perceptions of neurodivergence? Dude, I can't even say that freaking question. So I know this sounds like a lot. Trust me, we're gonna break it down. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Okay, you'll be okay. So, table of contents. We are going to be defining terms as we go, so don't even worry about it, baby girl, I got you. And just to start, because I'm going to be mentioning these terms a lot, I will define neurodiversity and all of the things that revolve around that language usage. If you clicked on this video, then you probably know what it is, but just in case. Neurodiversity is the umbrella term for any type of brain that falls under the spectrum of spiciness. So the typical binary is usually neurodivergent or neurotypical. Neurotypical means you fall within the quote-unquote expected range of brain usage. It's more of an arbitrary standard for how one is supposed to act in a default mode Skyrim settings kind of way. And neurodivergent is the thing that I am. That is not that, not the standard, and rather odd and a little strange and a little weird. Anything that diverges from the typical brain. That's why it's called neurodivergent and neurotypical. And then as far as the linguistics terms go, I'm going to be defining them as I go again. But just in case, we'll put some here. Post-editing, Sam put some definitions down, and then you'll be fine, and we'll figure it out, okay? So, as for my project, the actual thing that I did, I went on TikTok and Twitter and Tumblr, and I scrolled around, and I looked up posts that had certain keywords. So the 4 that I used were ADHD, autism, autistic, and actually autistic, which is a hashtag that was coined by autistic users on Tumblr to differentiate between users that were using the word autistic to be derogatory and or completely unrelated to actual neurodivergent issues. So that's why that hashtag was made, and that's why I decided to look it up. Because I wanted to include a range of content that didn't just filter to only neurodivergent users or only neurotypical users. Which I figured was going to happen if I only searched ADHD or autism in the search bar for any of these platforms. Except maybe Tumblr, because let's be honest, the fan base, you guys, is... come on. That's the gist of it. So, TikTok results. TikTok was fun. I will say it was definitely a mixed bag for the types of content I was getting. One thing I noticed between the platforms, and I'll get to this kind of later when we get to Twitter and Tumblr, Twitter especially. One thing I noticed between the platforms is that they varied in both the seriousness of the content provided and the intention. It's kind of hard to explain, so just providing an example here on screen. I found a TikTok of this person explaining autism but with seals, posted 12 hours before I started writing this script, which is awesome because it means that it's super recent and also exactly related to the subject matter I was looking for. The video is mostly comprised of incomplete sentences and what I'm going to characterize as autism voice, because I can say that, and also because it overlaps with Tumblr actually, and the way that many people on that platform use specific, not disjointed, but what neurotypical people would consider to be incomplete. But it's still coherent. And I'll play part of the video here so you can see what I mean. And then you look at the comments and the first one is like, I am a seal! And I just think that's so beautiful. It's so autism. Like, look at that little guy. Look at his big smile. Look at his eye. Look at his hands. He's got 3 fingers. One thing too with the portrayal of neurodivergence by neurodivergent people, and this is across all platforms, it was just kind of much harder to see on Twitter. There's a certain type of spin that we put on infantilization that makes it something to be kind of celebrated and enjoyed rather than scrutinized. I should really preface that by saying that that type of infantilization in particular is only and can only be used by the neurodivergent community. If it's used by anyone else, being the only other option being neurotypical people, the darn neurotypicals, then it becomes derogatory. It becomes, oh, look at that little guy, you're so autistic, or look how cute you're sitting in that chair, that's so ADHD. Like, bro, look into my big old anime eyes and tell me that you're being for real right now. Like, what? Another trend I found with TikTok is definitely the skit content. This is for sure the result of TikTok being a video-centric platform rather than a tech-centric one, but I thought that it was a very telling way to show if a neurodivergent person was the mind behind the production, so-called, rather than a nerd. This creates an intrinsic power dynamic between the quote-unquote validity of neurodivergent voices versus neurotypical ones. I put this in my final project write-up, but the power dynamics become particularly evident on TikTok, where I identified a clear distinction between authentic neurodivergent voices sharing lived experiences versus neurotypical content creators exploiting neurodivergent experience. The power dynamics become particularly evident on TikTok, where I identified a clear distinction between authentic neurodivergent voices sharing lived experiences versus neurotypical content creators exploiting neurodivergent experiences for entertainment. The prevalence of quick fix content and diagnostic baiting represents a form of linguistic colonization, where neurotypical voices appropriate neurodivergent experiences for commercial gain, while simultaneously perpetuating harmful stereotypes. Thank you. Oh, I know. Oh, honey, you can keep that. Keep those. Oh, okay. Keep going. And the final thing I found with TikTok is that there was a lot of content hoping to inform the viewer, whether the viewer was neurodivergent or neurotypical. One of the most prominent ones or types of content of this genre was, oh, let's test to see if you have ADHD. If you do these 5 things, if you spin in a circle 3 times and touch your nose, like, it's so, I laugh because I've been diagnosed by, like, a doctor, and I was when I was 7. But it's kind of ridiculous when it's used by neurotypical people, and then that promotes misinformation through other platforms, especially older generations saying, oh, you people have every mental illness nowadays, and it's like, bro, what? Like, what did I do to deserve this? Also, self-diagnosis is still valid, like, especially for neurodivergence. Like, I see so much content on TikTok hoping to validate undiagnosed neurodivergent people, which is great. Like, undiagnosed neurodivergent people are still neurodivergent. It doesn't make them less neurodivergent. But it also sucks because it's too broad. And a lot of the times these tests are also made in a format that feels neurotypical. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's just too sterile, if that makes sense. Here's an example. The first one that I found, this one, versus, let's go back to the freaking seal video made by an autistic person. You see what I mean? There's like more joy and whimsy. Anyway, moving on to Twitter. Oh my god. No, don't tell me it's this section already, no! Twitter. Guys, I'm gonna be so ferocious. I'm gonna keep it a buck. This was so depressing. Do you know how much fortitude I had to have to open this app on my phone? I'm not even on Twitter like that. Like, I have not posted anything to Twitter ever in my life, nor do I really care. A lot of times people get their news from Twitter. I don't get that. I get my news from the New York Times. Like a freaking normie. Anyway, that is actually kind of a good segue into why I got the results I did, or why I think I got the results I did on this platform. As we may or may not know, Twitter is made up of all types of people. There are people that are very vocal about their opinion, people that are want to rage bait, people that just kind of lurk and then like posts and then leave. Which is why some posts get 10 million views but only 200 likes, like you got the wrong kind of attention. Which brings me to my results. Okay. I'm gonna put like a few screenshots on the screen of the most recent Twitter posts that I found that use the word autism or autistic or ADHD. And then I think I put actually autistic, but I wasn't sure if people actually use the hashtag on. So there are two groups that you can see here. There are pages that are dedicated to ADHD and autism acceptance. Note the use of the word acceptance here instead of awareness, because people are plenty aware about the existence of autism and ADHD, we hope, but some may not accept us as we are. So that's why acceptance is the word that's used there. And then the other side is whatever this is. I really couldn't tell you. It also doesn't help that I'm basically never on Twitter, so this came as an absolute shock to me. Like, I'm freaking science monster, I'm up on that hill, and I just got smashed with the biggest Thor Odinson thunderbolt of lightning, dude. Like, I was gagged. It's a little ironic, actually, that I'm the one doing this, because autistic people are kind of known for our being a little clueless at things outside of our range of interest. Because it's like, well, I don't care. Like, that's not important information to me. Like, it's not... My alarm is going... Has it been going off the whole time? What the heck? I hope that wasn't able to be heard outside my headphones, because I'm not recording this again. It is 7 in the morning. Where was I? Bro, like, if it's not related to the 20 different versions of Metal Sonic, like, how am I supposed to retain that information? So anything related to the outside world or, like, known for being gullible and subsequently ridiculed and criticized for that. That's why it becomes, the butt of every joke. It's like, oh, you're autistic. Like, it's an insult. I personally am very proud to be peer-reviewed autistic. However, some people might still see this as an insult or not want to identify as autistic because of the negative connotations that come with that diagnosis. It's definitely prevalent for ADHD too, and I think that I'm not giving ADHD enough time in the spotlight for this particular section just because there wasn't a lot more discourse to be said about that, but I definitely still do see it in my everyday life. Like, if I'm not paying attention in class or I'm spacing out to something my mom said because, like, her shirt is inside out or whatever, and I'm thinking, oh man, her shirt's inside out. I should start paying attention now. Oh man, but I'm too late to tune in because I've been thinking about the shirt being inside out. But, oh man, now she knows I'm looking, so she doesn't know that I was paying attention. So now we have to lock in, focus on locking in, and then we can figure out how to tell her that her shirt is inside. So that's what I was telling you, because are you even listening to me? You make a good point. And then the joke will be, oh, she's so ADHD, or just in general, if someone is generally clumsy or forgetful or insanely hyperactive, then that's so ADHD. The usage of so, especially, is linguistically derogatory, in my opinion, if it's used a very certain kind of way. There's a lot of tonality to that as well. I don't think we have the bandwidth to get into that, because it's 6 in the morning and I need to get this done in the next 6 hours. Yay! But the thing I was going to mention about the derogatory usage of just straight up neurodivergent disabilities, or just the usage of the word disability in general, which seems like a buzzword nowadays, is that certain diagnoses carry a negative connotation alongside them that is rooted in, frankly, danger for the person being diagnosed, especially online nowadays. For example, BPD or OCD, or, as I was saying, autism spectrum disorder. Saying that somebody's bipolar, or not that they have OCD, but that they are OCD, or that's so OCD, or saying that they're autistic for doing a certain thing, is especially prevalent in neurotypical communities that are undereducated, and particularly when indexicality is involved. Our first linguistic term. Are we literally only like 16 minutes into the video? You're kidding. Indexicality, or a sign indexing or pointing to an object in a specific context, often has social meanings associated with a particular linguistic form. For example, someone could index the word dude as being associated with a surfer dude. The loo could be indexed with fancy people, Britain, or just fanciness in general, which can lead into questions like, do I just think this word is fancy because I think it in a British accent? Well then why is British English fancy? Are there other countries and languages that are fancy? Is British English the only language that's allowed to be fancy? Why is that? In short, the answer nearly always goes back to a history of colonization, where predominantly white, educated, industrialized, rich, and literally every time I've read that, I've said it wrong. Democratized nations exuded a superiority over anyone and everyone not a part of their perceived in-group. Thank you, Libby Green 2012. As far as discourse surrounding neurodivergence goes, indexicality is a way for neurotypical people to identify vocal patterns in language usage outside their expectations, and by extension exclude them from their perceived in-group of neurotypical. Psychologically, in-group bias dictates that anyone outside of a person's in-group should be regarded with a negative connotation, whether that be public shame, disgust, or ridicule. Essentially, the people in power stay in power, and the people without stay getting kicked down, because they didn't get to set the rules of the game. And even further than that, they didn't know that the rules existed. Which brings me to another concept from linguistics, language subordination. Language subordination describes the idea of one kind of language or way of speaking being inferior to another. One example of this, given by the podcast Talking Black with Bride, is how Dr. E had to unlearn the idea that standard American English is superior to African American English, when in reality they are merely two different languages, each with their own strengths and culture. Communication, especially for people with ADHD and autism, can be a point of contention and anxiety, but also a point of great community, and an incredibly unique and nuanced way of seeing the world that rarely gets the opportunity to flourish outside of neurodivergent-friendly spaces. This is especially the case because most of the world revolves around the lives of neurotypical people and their expectations, which doesn't leave room for neurodivergent people to unmask and live out our lives the way that we would around our neurodivergent peers. Or at least it doesn't leave a lot of room, you know what I mean? I'll give you some credit. Being forced to mask one's neurodivergence in a world where one's very survival hinges on us being able to mask well enough to pass as functioning or even normal is a daily battle. The reason I brought up language subordination in this video was that with any mention of ableism, there exists a supposed superior and inferior group. The idea that anyone can sound or look autistic is a ridiculous notion, but it doesn't stop people from indexing certain behaviors with neurodivergence and normalizing their ridicule. For neurotypical users, reposting a tweet where someone is long-windedly talking about a special interest and then ridiculing that person by calling them autistic might not be obscure. It may even be encouraged, especially if done in a way that attracts attention or clout on social media for the purpose of humor. However, the underlying impact behind that action is the perpetuation of a message which says autism should be ridiculed because it is different and by extension, bad. Oh my god, why was that section so long? Thank goodness that's over. Thank you, Jesus. We ride at dawn, and we ride to Tumblr. Tumblr! This was by far the most neurodivergent friendly platform that I studied. I'm honestly really glad that I saved it for last because 2 hours of compiling data from Twitter, half of which was questionable or derogatory, this was such a breath of fresh air. The majority of it was either people talking about their expectations being ADHD, which, by the way, is the combined term for autism spectrum disorder and ADHD, two neurodivergent disorders that experience a lot of overlapping comorbid symptoms, and comorbid just means they happen at the same time. How they make coping mechanisms, or just really excellent and tasteful memes. Oh, and also I thought this was the most helpful. The advice from ADHD people to ADHD people. A great example of this is a post I found that I'll put it up. That says, hack for if you're struggling with ADHD paralysis and you can't get started on a task. Step 1, add some silly rule to the task and make it more interesting and whimsical. Step 2, pretend Sam Reich just told you to do it. Here are a few examples that have worked for me recently. And I just thought that was the greatest thing ever because it would so work for me. And I know it would work for so many of my friends who are confirmed as well. So people in real life, not just me. Not that I don't exist in real life, I'm just a simulation. I am so tired, this needs to be over. Okay, linguistically, the way that certain phrases are presented on Tumblr are intrinsically more nuanced and layered than they would be on TikTok or Twitter. For one thing, Twitter has a word limit per post that you can make or a character limit, and from then on, you need to make threads and things like that. And then for TikTok, you can put in words, but the primary method of communication is through video and audio. I mean, it's video, so it's inherently supplemented by words, but you can't put in text the way you say something out of your mouth, you know what I mean? And a lot of times, neurodivergent people tend to mirror the things that they read or they hear. And so saying something that you might read out loud but not say out loud is more normalized within the neurodivergent community rather than in the neurotypical community, which is another thing that I saw. This was not a thing on Twitter, and less so on TikTok. It was very much a thing on Tumblr. People saying things that they would normally read in a book and not say out loud. And I find in my professional experience of 20 years of being neurodivergent, of having ADHD and peer-reviewed autism, that many neurodivergent people tend to speak a very certain way, and we can tell when someone else is neurodivergent based on their cadence. Or at least I can. It's interesting that we have a radar for each other's communication and can tell when someone's saying something that we need to interpret, but this is the complete opposite when speaking with neurotypical people. It's just, I'm lost, I'm in the forest, and you left me here, you're the witch, and I'm Hansel and Gretel, I'm about to cook you. And there were also a lot more meme formats on Tumblr, which is to be expected as well. For example, the meme while driving one, which I also related to absolutely all the time ever. Object permanent forever. I mean, never. Anyway, overall, I found Tumblr to be, as expected, a incredibly positive and neurodivergent friendly space. Really a breath of fresh air from the monstrosity that was my good 45 minutes scrolling through Twitter. I like how this whole section about Tumblr has just been about me praising the platform, and then the other half is just absolutely dunking on Twitter. Like, reflection. So Sam, why did you make this video? What's the point? Besides impressing your goat, Dr. Rachel WEISSLER, who you really hope gives you an A, the fattest A. Well, dear viewer, I'm glad you asked. It's all about language and power, the name of this course I'm taking. This project directly addresses linguistic power imbalances by exposing how neurodivergent language practices are systemically marginalized across digital platforms. My findings revealed that while I initially predicted significant variation in platform attitudes towards ADHD and autism terminology, the reality demonstrated more subtle but equally problematic patterns of linguistic subordination. The indexicality of neurodivergent terminology, particularly the distinction between ADHD and autistic versus autism, functions as a linguistic marker that either validates or invalidates speaker identity within online communities. This project combated these power imbalances by documenting and analyzing these patterns, making visible the way linguistic practices reinforce social hierarchies. I do recognize that simply documenting linguistic variation on public platforms does not directly inspire radical change. However, the discourse that is inspired by media literacy is in direct opposition with ignorance. Continued and willful ignorance is the enemy of progress, and progress takes time. By demonstrating how platform-specific discourses shape the public perceptions of neurodivergence, this research provides evidence for understanding how digital spaces can either perpetuate or challenge existing power structures. The documentation of genuinely neurodivergent linguistic practices and community building strategies offers a counter-narrative to dominant neurotypical frameworks, which could potentially inform more equitable communication practices across social media platforms. Finally, this work challenges the notion that a correct way to communicate about neurodivergence even exists at all, by highlighting rich diversity of neurodivergent expression. In conclusion, the conversation about language and power remains fundamental to understanding more about each other and our place in the world that we all share, and it particularly impacts minority communities. So in conclusion, why is language and power so important to learn about? I say it's fundamental to understanding more about each other and our place in the world that we all share. Oftentimes, it can be easy to be divisive with so many different types of people and cultures, instead of celebrating our diversity as it is. So understanding our history and others' history is a very simple and elementary way to form community and culture in a world that's constantly fighting unity. My friend Abby had this really amazing point in class that language is community and culture, and when people want to rob others of their language, it robs them of their power, especially for minoritized communities. So shout out Abby. Shout out Cam too, who was with me when I was procrastinating on this, dude. Oh my god. I'll do all my shout outs right now. I guess this is my afterword. Thank you for listening. Oh my gosh. Dr. WEISSLER, if you're still here, I love you so bad. You're literally the greatest teacher I've ever had in my history of schooling. The course organization is stellar. Like, oh my gosh. Hold my head. You're amazing. Oh no. Ah! I'm gonna miss you so bad. I hope you and your family are well and doing well on maternity leave. Yay! You're so beautiful. So I'm in love with you. What? Yeah, it's like that. It feels like that. You guys know that TikTok? Yeah. So wait, let me go back to my script because didn't I have a shout out in here? Wait, I did, right? Wait, I did. Yeah, I literally did. Okay, wait. Last thoughts and thanks to Dr. WEISSLER and the GEs and literally anybody who was involved with this project, even, circumstantially or peripherally. Hi, Abby and Callum and Cam and Dennis and Lucy and Molly and Phoenix and briefly my mom. Hi, Mom. I have literally been working on it since 10 p.m. last night. It is 7:20 a.m. And I only just started the script at 5:17. I wrote that down in my script, and this thing is due at noon. By the way, thank you, Dr. WEISSLER, for making the deadline seared into the very crevices of my brain. It means I have compartmentalized time in ADHD stress-induced lock-in mode, and I get bonus 5 hours to study for my impending Japanese final that I will do fine on. Haha. Future Sam, you should tell me what grade I get on that because, oh boy, this one'll be a doozy. I am so tired. Tired I am. Sam, I am. Is that how the book goes? I literally don't even know. It's been 7 years! That song is still good though. Anyway, subscribe, turn on that notification bell, and hit that like button. I've always wanted to say that. Oh my god. Okay, bye. Live and love, Sonic. You know what I should play for my outro, dude? Maybe I should put credits rolling too.